Well, here we are. It is Saturday, October 15th, 2022. My name is Larissa, and we are reading The Consolation of Philosophy, Book 5. So, this is part 2. Book 2, or Book 5, Part 2. Consolation of Philosophy by Boethius. I wonder what he looked like. I wonder if there's any drawings of him anywhere. Look it up. They're cutting trees outside, and the pollen's making my face itch. I'm not trying to be funny. My nose, my face itches. Metrum 5. What singular shapes travel the earth? Some with bodies stretched scoured the fields, drawing unbroken tracks with powerful breasts. Some whip the wind lightly, and wandering wing, floating to heaven's space in fluid flight. Others delight to press footprints on land, and with steps cross green fields beneath forests. Consider these, each in their forms, their faces bent down, senses dulled. Only the race of man lifts his head, and, standing upright, looks down upon the earth. Shouldn't this show, unless you are wrong, that men with upturned faces seek the heavens? Thrust your countenance forward. Don't let thoughts weigh your mind. Bear your soul aloft. 6. Therefore, since everything that's known is understood according to the nature of the one understanding, rather than according to the nature of the thing itself, as we showed a little earlier, let's contemplate, at least as far as we're allowed to, the state of the divine being, so that we can recognize what sort of knowledge it possesses. Now it's the common view of all living creatures endowed with reason that God is eternal. Let's consider what eternity is, for this will shed some light for us on both the divine nature and divine knowledge. Eternity is total and perfect possession at one time of unlimited life, which is made clear by comparing it with temporal things. Whatever lies within the present time goes forward from past events to future ones, and nothing has been created within time such a way that it can embrace at once the whole course of its life. It doesn't yet grasp tomorrow, but it has already lost yesterday, and in daily life you also live no more than in the moment that changes and passes by, and so, whatever experiences time in this way, even if it does not ever begin or be or cease to be, just as Aristotle thought was the case with the world, and though its life might extend to an infinity of time, it is still not something that can rightly be considered eternal, for it doesn't comprehend and embrace the entire space of the time it lives, even if it is infinite, and it doesn't yet possess the future, and it no longer has a past. Now, whatever comprehends and possesses all at once the complete fullness of unlimited time, and also possesses all of the future, and has lost none of the past, this is rightly claimed to be eternal. It is necessary that this thing be in possession of itself, be always present for itself, and have at hand the infinity of passing time. And so some men wrongly think that the created world is co-eternal with its creator, when they hear that this world seemed to Plato not to have a beginning and not have an end. For it is one thing to live an unlimited life, which Plato attributed to the world, but another to embrace all at once the complete presence of unlimited life, which characterizes the divine mind alone. For God should not be seen as greater than created things in quantity of time, but rather in his property of having a simple nature. Now, the infinite movement of temporal things imitates the present state of a life that does not move, since it cannot copy it or equal it, and since it falls short of motionless into movement, and passes down from the simplicity of the present into an infinite quantity of the future and past, and this infinite movement can't possess all at once the complete fullness of its life, and, by, in a certain way, never ceasing to exist, it only seems to emulate somewhat the thing that it cannot fulfill and express, and it binds itself to a kind of presence of the brief and swiftly passing moment, and this presence bears a kind of image of that permanent presence, and it makes whatever things it contacts seem to have true being. Since this presence couldn't really be permanent, it took the path of the infinite time. and in this way it was able to continue a life whose fullness it could not fully embrace by being permanent. And so, if we should choose to give suitable names for such things, we would follow Plato and say that God is eternal, but the world is only perpetual. Therefore, since every human judgment understands the things subject to it according to its own nature, and since the condition of God is eternal and abiding, then his knowledge also surpasses all movement of time and remains in the simplicity of its presence, embracing the limitless space of the past and future. It understands all things simply and considers them as if they were being done now. If you want to examine God's foreknowledge carefully, you'll consider that it's not so much foreknowledge of the future, but rather never-failing knowledge of the present moment. And so, we might do better to call it foresight rather than foresight, because set far away from the lowest things, as if from the lofty summit of the world, it looks forth on all things. Why, then, do you think that's what's revealed by the divine light? Becomes necessary when not even humans make what they see become necessary. When you see something happening in the present, your gaze doesn't convey any necessity upon the object, does it? No. But if there is any just comparison between divine and human present, just as you men see something in this temporary present of yours, so he discerns all things in his eternal present. Therefore, this divine foreknowledge does not change the nature or integrity of things. It sees the things that will happen in the future as being present to itself, and it does not confuse the judgment of things, but with one glance of its mind distinguishes both the things that will necessarily come about and those that will come about without necessity. Just as when you humans see at the same time a man walking on the earth and the sun rising. Although you perceive them both at the same time, when you are looking at them, you determine that the one act is voluntary and the other is necessary. In this way, therefore, the divine gaze, seeing all things clearly, does not at all misunderstand the nature of different things that are present to it, but that are future events with regard to time. And so it is that this is not opinion, but rather knowledge based on reality, when it shows what will happen, although it knows that the things themselves lack all necessity of happening. Hence, here, if you should say that what God sees will happen cannot help coming about, and that what cannot keep from coming about occurs through necessity, and if you should bind me to this word necessity, I will confess that it is a thing of most certain proof, but that only a person who contemplated divine matters could arrive at understanding it. And I will reply, the same future event seems necessary in terms of divine knowledge, but truly when considered according to its own nature, it seems totally free and absolute. You see, there are two necessities. One simple, such as it is necessary that all men be mortals, and another conditional, like if you know someone is walking, it is necessary that he be walking. For what any person knows cannot be any different from the way it is known to be, but this condition does not bring with it that simple necessity. This necessity is not caused by something's own nature, but by the adding of a condition, for no necessity forces man walking of his own accord to go forward, although when he is walking, it is necessary that he be going forward. In the same way, then, if Providence, being present, sees something, it is necessary for that to be, although it has no such necessity in its nature. But God sees as present those future things that occur through the freedom of the will. Therefore, these things, when considered according to divine gaze, become necessary through the condition of divine knowledge. But when considered in and of themselves, they don't lose the absolute freedom of their nature. So, without a doubt, all things that God foreknows will happen, will come about, but some of them proceed from freedom of the will. These things, although they will happen, don't through their occurrence lose their own nature, which would have allowed them not to happen before they occurred. And what does it matter that these things have no necessity when the appearance of necessity comes about in every way because of the nature of divine knowledge? For this reason, consider those examples I suggested a little earlier, the rising sun and the walking man. When they are happening, they cannot avoid happening. But one of them, before it happened, was necessarily going to happen, while the other wasn't necessarily going to happen. And so, the things that God possesses in the present will happen without a doubt, but some of these things through the necessity of things, while others occur through the power of the things that do them. And so, we are not wrong when we said that those things are necessary when seen in terms of divine knowledge. But if considered in and of themselves, they are freed from the bonds of necessity, just as anything that is manifest to the senses, if seen in terms of reason, is universal. But if you look at the thing itself, it is individual. Oh my God. Oh my God. It just ends there. It really does. It just ends right there. But it leaves me thinking, like, so there's a difference, right? And I think a better, not a better, but a maybe a more relatable or understandable comparison is like in the body. There are some things that the body does without us having to think about it, like breathing. Sure, if you think about it, you can stop yourself from breathing, but you just breathe, right? When you're sleeping, you breathe because it is a necessity and it's going to happen until you die, right? So, but like wiggling your fingers, that's happening, right? But it's not necessary. Breathing is necessary. Or your heartbeat. You don't stop your own heart, right? Anyway, I feel like the book could have gone on, but Boethius was in fact executed. Right? He was in fact executed. How many people? How many people die unjustly? Yesterday, reading about and hearing people talk about the recent, the conviction of that school shooter, that Nicholas Scott kid, right? So he's been convicted of those 17 murders, but the judge spared him the death penalty. And I am anti-death penalty. I am. And not because I don't have the human feeling that I think some people deserve to die. Like, that is a human kind of thing. But I don't believe in enacting it. I don't believe in it. Because even if there's one person who is wrongly accused and wrongly convicted, that person does not deserve to die. And just here in the United States, it is a conservative estimate to say that 1/4 of persons incarcerated have been wrongfully convicted. That's a conservative estimate. The real number is, of course, unknowable, but it is thought to be closer to perhaps 1/2. So you look at people on death row. You look at states like Texas, who execute people who are mentally retarded. Right? That is of no fault of their own. That is of no fault of their own. How is that a just and compassionate society? How many people have we executed in our prison systems who were innocent? How many? Oh, I'm sure there are many who were very, very guilty, right? And I'm sure there are many people who get away without ever having any conviction or even arrest, who have committed heinous crimes, right? There are people who get away with things, right? But is it fair for even one innocent? Boethius was innocent. Jesus Christ was innocent. The children of Ukraine are innocent. The children of Russia are innocent. Anyway, I don't know. Shall I go on? I'm not going to read any more right now, but the contemporary criticism. I think I will read them. I think I will read them. The footnotes are really worth reading, so it's worth getting the book. It's worth getting the book just to read the footnotes.